there are certain things that teachers don't want to let go because they think it is about them and not about the students. You design learning paths whose success is individuals capitalizing on their personal learning. And I think the best way for me to explain this is that when students pass, what do teachers say? That they taught them, that they are good teachers. When students fail, what do teachers say? That the students are lazy and the students did not read. If you are taking credit for the students who pass, you should also take responsibility for the students who fail. And if I were you, I would take responsibility for none. I, as a teacher, avail learning paths, and the student does what they may with those learning paths. So you cannot ascribe an outcome of a student to yourself, because the success of the learning paths that you design depends on what the student does with the learning paths, not the fact that you have created the learning paths yourself. And therefore, you do need to remove yourself from the mix. You are not part of it. This has nothing to do with you. You are the guy who designs the learning path, and the student does what they may with the learning path. If you will be an effective facilitator, you have to be satisfied with the knowledge that you offer and develop opportunities for others to learn, many of which will go unused or undervalued. Remember, what the student does with the learning paths that you've created is his challenge. What the outcomes of that process are going to be depends on what the student does with the experience. Remember though, you are the facilitator of that experience. So you still have some role to play in that experience, but the key actor here is the student. It is not yourself. Your mastery of content or transmission of it is irrelevant when it comes to your learners capitalizing on their personal learning. They will learn what they will learn. If the passing on of content was that important, if the passing on of content is what makes students pass or not pass, how is it that you pass on the same content the same way and students perform differently? Because students will learn what they will learn. It is your own ego that makes you think they learned because you taught. You remove your ego and you will see that the students will make their own mileage from the learning paths that you designed for them. It has nothing to do with you. The ownership of learning should be given to the individual learner. The situation is created and designed for him or her. Thus, during discussion, the individual should be given chance to express his or her reactions, not the facilitator. Suppose children are not able to see one particular aspect of a situation, the facilitator should pose questions on that aspect instead of telling the reaction directly. You know, you are not giving students answers. You are giving students the ability to think through stuff so that they can get to the answers. And therefore, your reaction to every question should be a question in return. Because what you're trying to do is to help the student to think through the process and get the answers themselves, not you giving the answer. Believe in your learners. Believe that they can and will make experiential learning opportunities work for themselves. Be committed to and satisfied with the fact that your role is to provide opportunities for them to learn and to progress. Although it will be hard for you to ease learners into learning situations that foster independence, resist the urge to fall back on the familiar approaches. It is difficult too for students to embrace independent learning, especially if the teacher is directing everything. And there was a discussion with teachers about how much should you guide students in an independent learning situation. That depends on your students. To what extent? For example, if a student has come from primary school and is in Form 1, you cannot compare that student with a student in Form 3 and in Form 4 in a school that is guided by independent learning principles. The one in Form 1 will probably need to be eased into a new way of learning compared to the one who is a little bit advanced. But remember that this does not come naturally to students, especially students who have come from our local system that is heavily teacher-centered. Their conventional beliefs of teaching based on past experiences in teacher-directed learning context. This is the biggest obstruction for teachers in terms of transitioning into modern pedagogies. I think another hindrance is unwillingness or difficulty encountered to self-reflect upon their learning experiences in the teaching methods. There is also lack of institutional support to transition. That's a huge one. If you are in an institution that does not support you to transition from traditional pedagogy to modern pedagogy, you're going to find it very difficult. Thankfully, that is not a problem here. Here, you are not only encouraged to transition, you are expected to transition. Another problem in transitioning for teachers is sabotaging themselves using learner resistance as an excuse. Because many learners have little experience in making decisions about their learning, difficulties with learner-centered methodologies should be initially expected. So if you're having challenges with your learners, then these challenges should be expected. But do remember that when you come here, our learners are already conversant with independent learner profiles. So the problem is not the learner, the problem is yourself.